Hello and welcome to episode 329 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. As always, joined by Evan Silva. Only 8 teams are still alive in this NFL season. Evan, divisional round is upon us. How's it going?
It's going all right, but on Sunday morning, I gave a little spiel to where I was really excited about the football that was going to be occurring on Sunday and Monday night. And the football was bad. I mean, the football was good on Saturday. It was bad on Sunday, and it was abominable on Monday night. But here we are.
Yeah. I mean, when you let mediocre teams like the Eagles, like the Steelers, and mediocre at best into the playoffs, you're going to have these extreme mismatches. I do think that all the games this weekend are going to be pretty good, at least on paper. Obviously, Bills, Chiefs, the headliner there, our Bills. I'd also say, shout out to DraftKings, man. We've talked a lot about corporate greed lately with the one-game slate the NFL put out. DraftKings could have probably made more money with two-game slates this coming weekend, the Saturday-only slate and the Sunday-only slate as the featured slate. And those slates will still be there. But they are going with the full 4-game as the featured slate. So I think that's good for people playing DFS. I think it's just good in general. I think FanDuel and a couple other sites I think are still doing the 2-gamer, but I still have to look into that more. I'm excited for a 4-game slate. Anyways, have to mention this show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks.com. You guys know me. You know I love player props. I will say they are putting their props out very, very early, even before our projections are ready. And when you are willing to take a stand like that and be market makers like PrizePicks is putting out props for the following week on Monday or Tuesday, there's going to be a lot of edge, but they're also going to get a lot of action, which I think they have been. It is indeed legal in places like California or Texas or a bunch of other states that don't have regulated sports betting. Florida, it is legal and regulated in those states. You can bet their props in parlay form. We do have a table up each week to compare our projections to PrizePicks lines. Those will be up later in the week if you want to give them a try. They have 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100. Use promo code ETR to get the best deal, or use the link in the show notes. Again, promo code ETR at prizepicks.com for the instant deposit bonus and the best deal. All right, as always, we're going to go team by team here, Evan. We're only going to focus on the 8 teams that are remaining. There'll be plenty of time in the offseason to talk about and do obituaries on postmortems on the teams that are gone. Let's start with the Green Bay Packers. They will come out of the bye to face the San Francisco 49ers. Just some small notes for me. I mean, MVS hurt his back in week 18. Seems like he's fine. He was back in practice today, January 18th. So I think MVS is going to be fine. And I will say that, I mean, to my untrained eye, it seems to me like Aaron Rodgers has been showing more and more confidence lately in MVS and Allen Lazard than he has been earlier in the season. Other little note I have here is that Aaron Jones should be fresh, man. I mean, dude hasn't played since January 2nd. So he's going to have like a full 3 weeks off between games for Aaron Jones. I think in these best ball drafts that are restarting now, Aaron Jones is really, really strong from a touchdown perspective. A.J. Dillon's going to still play a lot, but I think A.J. Dillon is one of the few guys remaining, maybe not one of the few guys, one of the clear guys remaining that can score 3 touchdowns in a game. Any takes on the Packers for you as they come out of their bye?
Yeah, I mean, MVS will be back. Randall Cobb is also due back. That's going to create some difficulties when it comes to projecting the Packers pass catchers. Defensively, they'll be getting back Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, and then David Bakhtiari made his season debut in week 18 against the Lions, played 40% of the snaps, got a full week of rest, and he should be all systems go here for the divisional round against the 49ers. I'm expecting an awesome game. I expected an awesome game, 49ers Cowboys. I thought it was a disappointment. I thought it was a disappointment. But I'm expecting an awesome game between Green Bay and San Francisco. They match up well to the extent that I think we can expect a really good football game.
Yeah, and I saw an early forecast for that game was going to be very cold, obviously up in Green Bay in mid-January. But, I think both teams are prepared to play in that type of environment for sure.
Yep. Jimmy G went to Eastern Illinois. I mean, he's played in the weather for sure.
Let's go to the Rams. Cam Akers only had 13 snaps in his debut in week 18. But they said, hey, listen, we want to get Cam Akers more. And they weren't lying, because in the wild card round, Cam Akers played on 32 out of 60 snaps, handled 52% of the running back carries. I mean, he had a really big time role, did Cam Akers. And I was actually surprised at two things. A, how much they used him. B, how good he looked. I know he didn't look that great in week 18. I thought he looked better last night. He also was open on I guess it was just like a straight vertical pattern that they had him split wide for. Couldn't connect on it, but they are using him as a receiver plenty as well. What do you see out of Cam Akers? Anything else on the Rams?
I mean, the guy's made an incredible recovery from an injury, a torn Achilles that, has been known to end running back careers.
Oh yeah,
almost without fail. And he looked awesome. I mean, he looked better than Sony Michel. And it goes to show why they were so high on his return. He probably, was looking really good in practice. He was out there breaking tackles. He was explosive. Used a little bit in the passing game. I would expect his role to continue to grow.
One thing that I noticed is Odell seeming to get more and more comfortable, right? And so when you're comparing Odell and Van Jefferson, I typically think it's close. Their roles aren't all that different. But Van Jefferson's been a little bit banged up, had the shoulder issue coming into the game. Odell just from and I think Van Jefferson is underrated, but Odell obviously from just a natural athleticism, talent perspective is so much better. They're letting Odell run trick plays. They're throwing the ball to Odell in the end zone. It's clear that Odell is ahead of Van. I don't think Odell was close to Cooper Kupp, despite what happened last night, but Odell is very clear to me ahead of Van, but I'm sure that's what the field is thinking. Also Matthew Stafford. I mean, he had some problems. I thought a slump of sorts late in the year. He was obviously awesome last night, even though he wasn't asked to do a whole ton.
Yeah, OBJ looks great. He's been a little bit of a flash player down the stretch for the Rams, which is to be expected joining a team at that stage of the season. But goodness, I mean, he looks really, really good out there right now.
Let's go to the 49ers. And I didn't even think Jimmy Garoppolo played a good game, man. Jimmy Garoppolo was inaccurate. I mean, he missed guys a ton in this game, and they still were able to go on the road and beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys is another mess that we can talk about another time. But yeah, I mean, San Francisco can win with run game, Eli and Debo. They can win with just straight yards after catch. I mean, they can win with defense. There's a lot of ways San Francisco can win. What did you think out of their performance in Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy G wasn't great. He wasn't, but he also took 0 sacks against that great Dallas front. Mm-hmm. He had the one interception, but that was his only turnover of the game. He was just a game manager. He threw for 172 yards. So that meant that, Brandon Ayuk was the leading receiver with 5 for 66, and George Kittle, although he led all the 49ers pass catchers in routes run, he didn't run that many routes. He only ran 23 routes because the 49ers just didn't throw much. I mean, Jimmy G had 25 attempts, again, for 172 yards. So none of the pass catchers hit. Debo Samuel, career high 10 carries. I mean, they are running him on the interior. He's like a legit running back. The love affair with Elijah Mitchell continued with Kyle Shanahan, 28 touches. Elijah Mitchell now has at least 21 touches in 6 straight appearances. Jawan Jennings did not have a big game like he did the week prior, but he is locked in as the 49ers number 3 receiver.
I wanted to stick on George Kittle for a second here, because this is 4 weeks straight now where George Kittle's targets per route run is bad. I mean, 4 straight weeks. He's run 114 routes over the last 4 weeks. That's resulted in 9 catches. I mean, 4 games, 9 catches for 78 yards and 0 touchdowns for George Kittle. It's hard in DFS because it's man, I want exposure to George Kittle, who can absolutely break the slate, but his targets per route run just is not good. And like you said, he's running plenty of routes. It's not that he's not earning targets for whatever reason. I don't know. It's not because he's staying into block, because he's still running a ton of routes. I don't know if you have any takes on what's going on with Kittle heading into this game with the Packers.
I mean, just in this particular game, I think that what you could do is you could dissect each game. And in this particular game, no one for the 49ers did anything in the passing game.
Yeah.
I mean, we know he's a great player. The 49ers know he's a great player, but they play a specific style, and, they don't always get all of their playmakers involved, and they didn't, and they weren't pushed in this game either by Dallas. I mean, Dallas just laid a freaking egg. I mean, The 49ers, there are 2 injuries to watch. Nick Bosa, concussion, and then Fred Warner also got injured in that game. But it sounds like Bosa is on the positive side early in the week, and it sounds like Fred Warner. It looked like a serious injury, but it looks like he escaped serious injury.
All right, let's go to Tampa. And Eagles. I mean, everybody thought Tampa was going to win, and everybody was right. I mean, they just rolled them, and it was such a bad matchup for the Eagles in general. I will say that maybe. I didn't emphasize Mike Evans enough on the DFS slate for whatever reason. Mike Evans was expensive, but man, with no Godwin, with no Antonio Brown, I mean, natural born touchdown scorer, like Mike Evans was such a great play. I did not play him nearly enough. Evans and Tyler Johnson were the top two. Perriman was the clear number 3, but they mixed in Scotty a little bit there. I thought the big news, though, was how good Gio Bernard looked. And it's so hard to tell when these guys come back from injury. Gio Bernard hadn't played since week 14, but he comes back and he plays really well. 36 snaps, 22 routes. Gio Bernard got base work. Gio Bernard got 18 touches. Now, we know that Leonard Fournette is going to get that base work as soon as he's healthy. I think he'll be back for the divisional round, but I'm really just guessing at this point because I thought he'd be back for the wild card round as well. What did you think of Gio's return and anything else on the Bucs?
Yeah, Gio looked really good. I mean, and the usage was almost perfectly even right down the middle between Gio and Keyshawn Vaughn. But I would be a little concerned that when Leonard Fournette comes back, that Gio might be the third down back.
Yes, I think he will. I think he will be.
Yeah, that's something that we'll definitely be discussing later in the week. Fucking Tyler Johnson. He had. I mean, I thought it was like a lock. He was at 2 catches for 30 yards with about 8 on 3 targets with about 8 minutes left in the second quarter. Okay. Yeah. And there was a play early on where Brady was like, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh shit. Yeah. But I was still like, man, we got 2 for 30. All we need is 5 more yards. All right. 5 more yards. But I did have this sneaking, this feeling in my gut, like he's not going to get another catch, is he? And then he didn't. I mean, it was painful to watch that. They were up by a lot, and I was like, man, they might not throw that much the rest of the game. And I mean, they still wound up throwing a decent amount.
Tom Brady threw it 37 times.
Yeah. I guess he's just not very good. I mean,
and his where he's running routes is not that great. But I will say that Evan had, I think you have over 34 and a half or something like that, or over 33 and a half yards on Tyler Johnson. Both. Shout out to the line shoppers out there. I actually had Tyler Johnson over 28 and a half on FanDuel. So when you're a sick pup like me and you have money on 20 different books, you can go around and find the 28 and a half, and it's obviously going to make a big difference, I think, in the long run. So, but I couldn't believe he didn't get another ball either.
I know. I wanted to say one more thing because this is critical as we move forward through the week. The Bucs offensive line really got banged up in this game. Remember, Tristan Wirfs got hurt. And then he tried to go back in. And I mean, it was just it was horrible when he tried to go back in. I think he's probably going to be a game time decision. I mean, he might be the best right tackle in the league. And there was a massive drop off, you could tell he mattered in the game. And then the backup, Josh Wells, their swing tackle, came in. He suffered a quad injury. So, and then Ryan Jensen, their Pro Bowl center, stud. I remember Ross Tucker, I did a podcast with him for many years. That was like his favorite center in the league, Ryan Jensen. He's a stud, and he suffered an ankle injury in this game. So,
and they're facing Aaron Donald, Aaron Donald this week.
Exactly. So that is going to be, as I'm like, starting to get together, what am I going to write about in the matchups column? Like, that's going to be a big theme.
Yeah. One other thing I would say, just to circle back on the Fournette stuff, if Fournette is healthy, I mean, to me, it's clear they don't love playing Keyshawn Vaughn. They like playing Gio. They have no interest in Le'Veon Bell whatsoever. I think the most likely outcome is Leonard Fournette for most of the base work and Gio Bernard in passing situations. But, we'll see, and we'll know way more about that on Friday.
Do you think, let me ask you this before we move on to the next one. Do you think that they said, let's hold out Leonard Fournette, or we're getting Gio back this week. Let's hold out Leonard Fournette. We think we don't need him to beat the Eagles. We can win with these guys, or do you think that he's not where they want him? Or, do you have any sort of, intuition here?
I think in the playoffs, if a guy's ready to play, he plays. I don't think they try to get cute and say, yeah, we can win with Gio and Keyshawn Vaughn. So my lean is that he just wasn't ready, but he was close. I mean, that's kind of the way I'm playing it for now. I know. I'm interrupting the video. Wah. But if you're enjoying this video and want to see more fantasy football and DFS content like it, please just take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Really does go a long way for us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and now back to the show. Let's go to the Bills, and what a performance for the Bills, our Bills. I mean, God, I just love the Bills so much, man. They can beat you in so many different ways now. Their ceiling is so high. This Devin Singletary thing, I mean, dude just has one of the best roles in the league right now. And I get that there's some goal line, worry. I get that Josh Allen typically doesn't throw to running backs that often, but man, he's getting goal line work. He's getting some catches. He has 103 touches in the last 5 weeks. They're not even using Moss or Matt Breida at all. The other interesting part on Buffalo was the wide receiver situation where it looked like Cole Beasley, I guess, got demoted. He only ran 9 routes on 31 Josh Allen dropbacks. Manny Sanders, 17 routes. Isaiah McKenzie, 12. Gabe Davis, 20. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say McKenzie is giving them more than Beasley's given them this year at all. So I'm curious what you think about that and anything else on the Bills.
Yeah, well, first of all, and the big stats going around all throughout the week where, Josh Allen can't play in the cold, this shitty ass noisy, 5-6 game sample. Well, I mean, if that was, the crux of your analysis, regarding Josh Allen, I mean, in the wise words of Brett Favre, maybe you need to take 2 weeks off and then quit. Okay. But I mean, Josh Allen was perfect in this game. But they come out 7 straight possessions, I believe. They scored touchdowns on. He took 0 sacks. He was only hit once. 12.3 yards per pass attempt. One thing that was kind of missing from their offense at times, well, at least in comparison to 2020, was the downfield passing game. But man, that was clicking in this one. And look, I got a lot of stuff wrong in the wild card round. I thought that the Patriots would be able to stay competitive with them. But this was, it was statistically one of the best games in playoff history by Josh Allen. And, they are such a dangerous team right now. Devin Singletary continues to run really, really hot. 8 touchdowns over his last 5.
Yeah.
19, 21, 23, 17, 23 touches in those 5. But for as great as Josh Allen was, he did not have a ton of attempts. And therefore, there were 6 different Bills who saw between 3 and 5 targets. Dawson Knox led the way with 5. 5 different Bills wide receivers saw between 17 and 40 snaps. Gabe Davis was out in front, then Diggs, then Emmanuel Sanders, then McKenzie, then Beasley. And we talked about, there was a concerted effort in this game to involve Isaiah McKenzie because, they were manufacturing touches for Isaiah McKenzie, 3 for 45 as a receiver, 3 rushes. Yeah, he was ahead of Beasley. He can win against man coverage. Patriots play a lot of man coverage. And Isaiah McKenzie, because of his speed, he gives you more juice than Cole Beasley does. And so I don't know why would they I don't know why they change anything going into this game and maybe even use more guys on the interior against Kansas City. Kansas City has been pretty suffocating against outside receivers, but we'll be talking about that later in the week.
Yeah, for sure. And you were also on Dawson Knox. Shout out to you. Dawson Knox ended up breaking that Saturday only slate with a 589-2 performance on 5 targets. When Dawson Knox, he's going to play 100% of the snaps, so when you have a guy out there for 100% of the snaps, obviously there is a way higher ceiling than there is in some of these part-time guys. So I think Dawson Knox is certainly in play again against the Chiefs. Also
on that initial touchdown, I can't remember if it was the first or the second touchdown. I think it was the second one. Josh Allen said he was like throwing the ball out of bounds and he was trying to throw it away and Dawson Knox just went up and got it. That's why you draft athletes, man. Remember, Dawson Knox had 18 receptions in his entire college career, 0 touchdowns, but he was an athlete. And they took him in the 3rd round, and he's really evolved into a player.
Let's go to the Bengals. I think we've said it all year. It's really hard to know when it's going to be a Jamar Chase game, when it's going to be a T. Higgins game. I mean, Jamar Chase went off on 12 targets in this game. T was a bust on 4 targets. We had their projected targets roughly equal. And so, it can go really bad because it's really hard to say. I think over the long run, it's going to be close between these guys. In an individual game, though, it's really, really hard to know. I'd also note that CJ Uzomah, I mean, he has at least 6 targets in 5 of his last 6 games, and there's a lot of good tight ends in this divisional round slate. CJ Uzomah is going to be the cheapest one, but he at least is seeing volume. What did you see out of the Bengals? It wasn't easy for them to beat the Raiders, but they did get the win.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just going to quote the exact same stat that you did on CJ Uzomah. 6+ targets in 5 of his last 6. I mean, he's usually not, a big part of the game plan, but I mean, he can execute when he's given opportunities. We've seen that. Jamar Chase is just incredible. And I mean, they know that, he had 12 touches in this game. I don't know if it was because, the stuff that we talked about in terms of, the short turnaround for the Raiders, but the Bengals did a good job of pass protecting against what has been a really good Raiders pass rush throughout the season. Joe Burrow took 2 sacks and 5 hits on 36 dropbacks. That's really good for the Bengals offensive line. You remember Joe Burrow took the most sacks of any quarterback in the NFL this season. And so I thought that was promising to see. I don't know, maybe that won't carry over against the Titans, but you like to see that. First playoff win for the Bengals in 31 years. That's a long time. I mean, we were, 7 years old?
Yeah. I mean, congrats to the Bengals, man. Our Bengals. Yeah. I love the Bengals and I love the Bills. I wish they could meet in the Super Bowl. Of course, they can't. But yeah, excited for the Bengals, who, again, are only 3.5 point dogs going to Tennessee this week. I mean, it's not crazy at all to think Bengals are going to be very live to be in the Super Bowl. Let's go to the Chiefs. One of those big stories of the week. I mean, maybe the biggest fantasy story of the week. Old friend Jerick McKinnon. And the reason I call him old friend is because, like, when people were making fun of Spark and, like, people focusing too much on measurables at the combine, Jerick McKinnon was like the face of it because everybody, I mean, I love Jerick McKinnon. I was so excited about it. And everybody was like, see, it doesn't matter how fast the guy is or how high he can jump. Can he play football? Jerick McKinnon can't play football, right? And maybe there was some of that. Jerick McKinnon certainly underperformed. But when you have a really good athlete who can catch the ball like Jerick McKinnon can, you can see what he can do. I was still shocked that Darrell didn't play more. I know Darrell got benched. Maybe his toe wasn't right. But, man, for Jerick McKinnon to come out here and play 51 snaps in the wild card game, handle 12 of 16 running back carries, get 6 targets on 35 routes, rack up 142 total yards. I mean, what a performance from Jerick McKinnon. And I think going forward, it'd be hard for them to say, okay, you go back to the bench now. I mean, he's played better than CEH or Darrell has played all year. I mean, Jerick McKinnon was better in this game than Darrell or CEH was all year. So I would pencil in Jerick as the feature back going forward, or at least the 1A of a committee. I'm curious what you think of our old friend Jerick McKinnon and anything else on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, and Jerick McKinnon, I mean, when you talk about low-hanging fruit, he was a quarterback at Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
And he becomes the poster child for why we shouldn't be looking at players' combine measurables. I have this crazy theory, Adam, and it's that athleticism matters in athletics. I mean, my God. But I mean, hey, Jerick McKinnon's putting together a long career. I mean, we got to be. He has to have been around for like 8 years at this point.
Yeah, I think he's in his 7th year, and that includes missing a year and a half due to the knee injury.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, my take on the whole athleticism thing, not to go off on a tangent here, is that not all great athletes become great players.
Sure.
But almost all great players are great athletes, and I think that Zach Whitman said that he runs the Spark metrics site on the 3 Sigma. So yeah, it seems pretty clear to me.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say is that, we've talked about this, like Andy Reid historically has had like one of the best screen games in the NFL, like going back to Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, like they would have, that would be a big play machine for them, like their screen game. And for whatever reason, and you would think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be like the perfect screen game back, right? But it just hadn't been a big part of their offense. We saw some of that with Jerick McKinnon in this one. He was an every down back. He was 152 yards, touchdown, played almost, every snap. Like he was way out in front of Derek Gore. I thought it was at least somewhat interesting. Tyreek Hill is back to almost 50 out of 65 snaps. led the Chiefs wide receivers in snaps and routes run. But then Hardman, Pringle, and Demarcus Robinson pretty much shared the numbers 2 through 4 receiver positions equally. Pringle did wind up scoring twice, but Hardman was involved, and Demarcus Robinson had 4 for 76.
I mean, and this goes back, we talked about this on Friday, and Mahomes doubles hit here because Kelsey got there and Tyreek got there. But from target perspective, like if you would have looked at Chiefs box scores a year or 2 years ago, you would not have seen it spread so wide. Demarcus Robinson, 5 targets. Mecole Hardman, 4. Byron Pringle, 7. Like you wouldn't have seen that in the past. It would have been way more concentrated on Kelsey and Tyreek, and that's been a recurring theme. But still, man, these guys are so good that Mahomes doubles with Kelsey and Tyreek can certainly still get there, and I'm sure plenty of people will be trying to jam that in on the 4-game slate.
And I guess some people were mad about we were too aggressive on the Darrell Williams projection, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we did talk about that like extensively. That that toe injuries suck for RBs, man, and there's a lot of volatility in those situations, and I think you gotta. I mean, I'm not making any excuses here, okay, but like. It's like that's a tough situation.
Sure. I'd say this. Darrell Williams was limited practice all week. Didn't miss a single practice all week. Yeah, he wasn't full, but he was limited. I mean, when you start docking guys who are limited all week, it's really dangerous because guys are limited all week all the time and are 100%. And maybe I get that it was an extenuating circumstance with Darrell because he's not that good to start with, and the toe injury was just last week. And I get that there were some extenuating circumstances, but man, it's just hard to know. And I did a whole thing on the solo pod about it again, about my fantasy beat writer dream. Maybe we'd have someone out there saying, "Oh shit, let me get out there to Chiefs practice so I can see if Jerick McKinnon's taking first team reps or if Darrell's taking first team reps." I mean, I would pay. How much can I pay for that? It's infinite, so anyways.
Yeah, because those guys can't put that on Twitter.
Yeah.
But what if they were telling us?
Now we're talking.
Oh, daddy.
Last thing we're going to do today is the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, they're coming out of their bye. The Derrick Henry thing continues to be a problem because if you're in these playoff drafts, if you think Derrick Henry is 100%, Derrick Henry might be the number 1 pick right now in playoff leagues going forward. But I don't know, man. He's been out for so long. And D'Onta Foreman has played well. Is he really ready to touch the ball 25 times in this game? I'm kind of skeptical about that. So I'm a big gun shy on Derrick Henry. That could look really bad, though, if he comes out and he's the old big dog himself. I don't know if you have any read on this and anything else on the Titans heading into the divisional round.
I don't know if the Titans know yet. I don't know. I think that they want to see him legit like stack a couple of practices and see how does he recover? Does his foot get sore? Does he feel comfortable on the foot? Do they go back to what he kind of was earlier in his career, like give him, 11 to 14 carries? And I mean, D'Onta Foreman has been pretty good, so I think that they're, and Mike Vrabel was asked about it today. We're doing this on Tuesday, and he wasn't definitive. He was like, we're going to see how he feels. And I mean, I don't think he's lying. Like, I don't think that they know for sure whether Derrick Henry is going to be ready to tote it 30 times against the Bengals yet. And I think that they'll have a better feel on Friday, and they'll probably have a better feel, when the game starts.
I don't really have much else on the Titans. Obviously Julio and AJ Brown are going to be as healthy as I think they've been in a while, which is good. I mean, it sets up well, man. If they can get big dog, AJ, Julio, Tannehill all out there together, like, they can give the Bengals some problems for sure. Again, they're a 3.5 point favorite. Should be a really, really, really good game. We'll talk more about that on Friday. All right. That's going to do it for this 8-team by team podcast. Appreciate you all being here. If you have not subscribed yet, it is indeed free. We're going to have a ton of off-season content and podcasts for you guys, particularly on the free side. Be sure you're subscribed on iTunes or YouTube so that you know when a new episode is up. For Evan, for Producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.